Well, the post-election Pandora's box continues to unfold in front of us. Today, the media declared Joe Biden to be the winner of the election. And this, of course, led to people all around, mainstream Republican types, and of course, everyone in the media, and, everyone who supports Joe Biden to come out and say, okay, Biden's the president now. It's time to begin our transition phase. It's time for Trump to concede. And, of course, Trump is not conceding. In fact, they timed the declaration that Joe Biden was going to be the next president, just a few minutes before Rudy Giuliani was set to give another press conference on their ongoing legal challenges. And it seems to me that the way that they are going to address all of this, the strategy that they're taking, is that because the Republican observers were denied the ability to see realistically the mail-in ballots as they were coming in, when they were being checked and, processed, that those ballots, since we cannot verify that they, should be counted and that they are legal ballots, he wants all of those thrown out in all of these states. Because what happens with these mail-in ballots is that they come in an envelope, they've got, signatures touch them, all that, you know who the person is, and then they're taken out of the envelope, and then, if all the information is correct, then they're counted. But since all of this was done without Republicans really being, having their observers close enough to make sure that all of these ballots did pass the smell test, now they're just secret ballots out there in the ether, just like any other ballot. And so you don't know, they're not going to, you don't know which of those ballots are accurate or not. There's no way of checking that, whether those ballots were legal or if they were cast by dead people or things like that. And so Giuliani is going to move in the courts. And, well, not just Giuliani. I don't think he's going to be the person actually arguing it in court, but the lawyers representing the Trump campaign in all these different states are going to try and move to have these ballots thrown out. And according to Giuliani today, in Pittsburgh and Philadelphia alone, that amounts to 700,000 ballots, which, if you throw out 700,000 ballots that are going to be 90% for Joe Biden, well, then obviously Trump would win Pennsylvania. And that's the case they're making right now. And so they've got similar lawsuits in Georgia, in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada. I don't expect a challenge like this to come from Arizona. There's been some talk of that, but from what I've seen, Arizona does not seem to have these same problems. I mean, yes, the sheriff did in Maricopa County block the Republican the Republican observers from going in to the clerk's office and observing things. So I mean, there is some monkey business going on there. So maybe they have a case to throw out some ballots there. But I don't think that would be. I don't think it'll be nearly as big in Arizona as it would be in these other states. Because in these other states, you have a long-term history of fraud in a lot of these counties. And, not letting the observers in to see up close. You can say, oh, well, they were in the same room. It's like, okay, well, if they're having to use binoculars and they're so many feet away, they obviously have they're playing no role in the canvassing process and things like that. They have really, I mean, it's just, there's no real access. It's a sham at that point. And so, what this will come down to is whether or not, because this is going to make its way up to the court, because either side, whoever loses or wins at every level, this is going to keep working its way up the court system until it gets to the Supreme Court. And we already know that, obviously, John Roberts is going to vote against the president on whatever their case is. And it will come down to Thomas, Alito, Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and Barrett. And personally, I think that's pretty risky. The longer this goes on, the more that you have a mainstream consensus that Joe Biden is going to be the next president, the harder it becomes to overturn this, because the Supreme Court cares about optics almost more than anything. I mean, if you look at the Supreme Court's history, they have a long history of not ruling in favor of, what was necessarily the legally correct thing. They'll look at what they want to achieve, what they think they need to achieve to elevate the status of the Supreme Court and of their own personal reputation, and they will find some pathway through the law. They'll try and finagle an answer or an opinion to suit whatever conclusion the Supreme Court wants to reach. And so I don't think that it's a slam dunk for Trump that if he's able to get this stuff to the Supreme Court, that he will win in all these states. But to me, what matters is that he goes that far at all. The further he takes this, the more he fights this, the less legitimate Joe Biden's presidency is going to be. This is very, similar, but on a much grander scale to what happened to George W. Bush in 2000. Al Gore wanted to keep counting ballots and recounting until hopefully, they counted them in a way that showed Gore in the lead. And ultimately, the Supreme Court put a stop to that. And so people, for years said George W. Bush was selected, not elected. And when half the country thinks that you're totally illegitimate, that pretty much cripples your presidency. Look at what happened to Trump over the last 4 years. Half the country thought that he was a Russian puppet who only became president because Russia rigged the election in his favor. I mean, that was the slogan for years. Russia hacked our election. People said the last election was stolen. Well, now this time, the more Trump fights this, the more people on his side are going to say that this election was stolen from him. And so I'm no less... I would say I'm really no less bullish today on Trump than I was yesterday, even though the media is declaring him to be whatever. I still want to see them go through this legal fight. And I don't know how it's going to turn out. That's all it is. But I mean, the legal fight is going to go out. It's never over again. We're never going to hit one day and just say it's over until there actually is a Supreme Court decision, until there is this court battle. The lawsuits are going through. They've made that clear. Trump is not giving in on this. And in fact, more Republicans are coming around to support him. Steve Scalise, the House Minority Whip, that is the whip in the House, is in charge of literally whipping up support in his chamber amongst his party. That man is named Steve Scalise. He came out today and said the election's not over. Well, Steve Scalise's job is to make sure that all the members of all the Republican members of the House of Representatives go along with whatever he's saying. So if the whip in the House is saying that the election's not over, as far as the Republicans in the House are concerned, the election's not over. And Kevin McCarthy has been kind of saying similar things, although not nearly as strong as Scalise, but Scalise is a deputy of McCarthy. So that means that McCarthy is going along with this too. And McCarthy's a rhino type. He's not some, conservative firebrand or something like that. He's not a Matt Gaetz. Who actually, didn't he have some ghost-written book called Firebrand that came out recently? But anyway, I can't remember. So yeah, the mainstream Republicans seem to be coming along. Even I heard Lamar Alexander, of all people, said some favorable things about this, so they're going to stick it out. I mean, the Republicans have gone forward with some dumb stuff in the past too. I mean, this is not the dumbest thing. If the Republicans choose to back Trump on this is not the worst thing they've ever tried to do. I think the impeachment of Bill Clinton was much flimsier than this legal case of trying to say Trump won the election. And so, as far as I'm concerned, calling this election for one candidate or the other while this legal battle is ongoing is totally irresponsible. Obviously, the media knows that, though. They're just trying to poison the well and pressure Republicans most of all to not support Donald Trump. Because the narrative is, well, it's already been declared that Biden's the winner. Are you going to, be an open rebellion against CNN? And, they essentially posed this question to Giuliani at the press conference, and he had a rather ridiculous, but I thought hilarious response to where he kind of looked up in the sky and he said, oh, all the networks declared Biden's the winner. Oh, the courts don't matter anymore. And I mean, it looks ridiculous when you take it out of context, but he was making a good point, and I thought it was genuinely funny. But of course, if you don't like Rudy Giuliani or Donald Trump, you're going to think he looks like an absurd buffoon. So, yeah, I'm happy to say that none of this is going to be over for a long time. We, as I said the day after the election, this is going to be a long legal battle. This is not going to be solved when the states finally decide to stop counting votes, which who knows how long that's going to take. I mean, Trump's deficit in Arizona today shrunk down to 20,000 votes. I don't know how many votes are left to count in Arizona. I don't know if it's going to close the gap for him. You have some people saying it will, some people saying it won't. But either way, at this point, if the legal challenges are going forward, maybe it's not such a big deal that he's not outright winning Arizona and Georgia. It's just, to me, I'm saying, if I wanted to bet on Trump, I would wait and see, okay, does he only need to flip one state? Because, the more states that he has to flip in court, the more of a Hail Mary this is. Of course, Giuliani later said essentially that this might evolve into not a bunch of cases against individual states, but rather one big case, one big federal case that involves all the states. So I'm not really sure what that would entail. But of course, the final, the last checks on this, if they do lose in the courts, but they're able to win maybe the public opinion battle, what that would mean is that the Republican state legislatures in the states of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia could just simply choose to send pro-Trump electors to the Electoral College if they think that Trump actually won the election in their state. Now, that would be a nightmare scenario where people, I think incredibly say that Trump stole the election because the official vote tallies will not reflect him winning those states. And, I mean, you'll have absolutely, I can't imagine anything that would lead to a bigger backlash against the Electoral College. But, the media declaring Biden the president and making him seem like the legitimate next president of the United States is meant to guard against that, to make Republican state legislators, of whom there are a lot, there are, hundreds and hundreds that we're talking about, probably over 1,000 if you add them up in all these states, who would, have to vote in favor of this. I don't see that really happening. But, the mainstream media, the Washington Post, other places are now even discussing that. And we heard this just a couple days ago, but now it's making it into more mainstream media. So maybe people are taking that seriously. At this point, I would not take that too seriously until we get much further down this road and see the way things are going. But again, I can't emphasize enough how not over this is. I have no idea what is going to happen at this point. And frankly, things are going pretty good as far as I'm concerned, because my goal coming out of this election was for people to, lose faith in the electoral process of just, we all vote every 4 years for president, and that's wonderful, and that makes us great Americans, and that's how we get everything we want. I think that's terrible. You can't govern a country of 320 million people by electing a single person every 4 years. That's completely unsustainable. People need to realize that, and so people need to wake up. They need to be dissatisfied. So I thought the best way to do that initially was for Trump to win and for the left to freak out, because they freaked out so much in 2016. I didn't know they were going to freak out like that, or else I might have supported him then. I really didn't even think Trump had a chance or wanted him to win until like the last month or so. But I think that this scenario that we're in now is, even more chaotic than if Trump had just won outright, especially if he actually is able to come back now and win after all this. But I mean, no matter who gets in, whether it's Trump or Biden, they're going to be totally illegitimate. One side is going to not believe that they are the real president. And the longer that Trump carries on this legal fight, and the more he wins, even if he falls short in the end, he's going to delegitimize the Biden presidency and make it so that Biden can't do bad things while he's in office. So if you're a big Trump guy, I would not give up hope yet. Certainly, don't become a doomer. But I'm just saying, from my personal perspective, there's two ways that this goes. One of the two is going to be president, and I'm okay with either one at this point. So I guess we're just going to have to wait for more developments. Trump is not saying much right now. Of course, he tweeted, "I won by a lot." So that's kind of signaling where his sentiment is at right now. The legal battle is supposedly starting up on Monday, so maybe we'll have more news then. But, I think they've got a good case. I think that they're going to make a compelling case in court, and hopefully a compelling case in public. I think that by the end of this whole process, Trump supporters will be assured that this election was not legitimate. And so, at the very least, they will, even if Trump ends up losing, they will resist the federal government coming up. Joe Biden issues some sort of tyrannical edict, like a national mask mandate, that's going nowhere. Nobody's going to follow it. Nobody's going to care. People are going to say, shut up, Joe. You're an illegitimate president. You're a dictator. And of course, if Trump wins, people will definitely say he's a dictator, and that he was not elected, and that he just sort of stole power in a coup. So the legitimacy of the American presidency is going to be absolutely decimated after January. And that means that people will start taking their local governments a little more seriously. Hopefully, localities will start clawing back power from Washington. That's what I can hope for. That, to me, would be a good outcome. And so with that said, if you get anything of value out of this video, I'd appreciate you clicking that like button and sharing this video. And if you haven't already, please do subscribe, because I do upload every day, and I'd hate to have you miss one. So I'll see you folks back here tomorrow.